This episode of the Naperville Moms Network is brought to you in part by presenting sponsor Edgewood Clinical Services, providing comprehensive counseling and mental health services.
Welcome back to the Naperville Moms Network. The loss of a family member, friend, or pet is not the easiest thing to go through for a family. Helping our kids through a loss like this will eventually be a part of our parenting journey. Do you guys have any suggestions as to how you've dealt with a loss?
I think the hardest thing about loss in general is that you're going through your own thing with it. I mean, we all handle loss differently, and we actually go through different stages of like grief or all of that. And so we're managing our own emotions, but at the same time having to pay attention to our children who are also going through those stages, and maybe not at the same time we are. And sometimes we could maybe underestimate what they're feeling because of how we are feeling.
Sure.
Our most recent loss, not that we've had all these losses, but our most recent loss was our pet. And he had been in our family for 12 years. We loved our dog, but he was sick, and so it wasn't like something that was not necessarily we didn't know was coming.
Right.
But when the day did come, I really underestimated how my teenage son would react. I knew it would be bad because they were very close, but I didn't realize how heart-wrenchingly bad it was, like how he couldn't get over it for a while. And then he was the one that actually said to me, my whole life he's been here. I don't know what my life will be like now.
Wow.
And it was like he was missing the dog, but I think that's what loss is so hard for kids, because they know this is what my life has been like. My life has been with that person in it, or this is the house we've lived, or whatever it is. Now what happens? And what happens to me? I don't know what life looks like. They've never gone through loss before. They don't know how it looks on the other side. So we have to really pay attention to like kids worried about themselves and how they're going to make it through.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think children don't have as much experience as we might, or have those coping skills or mechanism.
Right. Sure.
So I think it helps to have these conversations regularly. They don't have to be drastic, but just preparing them that life has unexpected events that come through. Things might not go our way, or we might have to deal with loss of a friend, moving out of town, or in the family, a parent losing their job. So I think these are conversations we need to have on a regular basis, and obviously age appropriate too. But as you're going through something, how you're coping, or what's going through your mind. So when they have those kind of events happen, they're kind of thinking through, I remember my mom or dad, this is what they said, yes, it's going to hurt.
Yeah. They were sad. They were. I saw them crying.
Right, and it was
I saw them
okay.
having emotion
Yes.
over it.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's part of life. I mean, endings are part of life, and loss is, and I think it's okay to have every emotion that you need to have. And I also think we underestimate not only their reaction, but what young children can understand. I know my grandmother passed away within the past 8 months, and my children, grew up knowing a great grandmother. We're very, very close. My mom's an only child, so we're a close-knit family. And she was sick for a little while, and so I started to have those kind of preparatory conversations. And it's funny because with my oldest, I coddled kind of and had more conversations with her, and I didn't dismiss my son, but I guess all around me people would say he's not going to understand. He's not. Well, I had them go to the wake and the funeral, which was a different conversation, for that closure. And he went to a preschool program, and I never had even asked him if he was okay. And when I went to pick him up, the teacher said, "Did your grandmother die?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "My nanny died. It was really sad. We went to the funeral for 2 days. She's in heaven now." I mean, completely articulated that to his teacher. Said he needed a hug from the teacher, and that was that.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, oh my goodness, I didn't even concentrate on him, because here I thought, you don't really understand what's going on. But sometimes they do. And it's I'm happy that they spent 6 hours, at the wake, because they see that family together time, and of course they behaved because they can see how important it is, so I think sometimes that closure is what's needed for no matter what age.
And it also helps them not just focus on the missing part, like the lost part. It helps them focus on the memories, the happy, the celebrated, not the celebratory part of it.
Right,
You know, when my dad passed away 15 years ago, my youngest wasn't born yet. The 2 older kids were little. And they only knew my dad as being very sick. And my older nieces and nephews, they knew my dad healthy. And so having them share those stories with my children, that was just that was a gift. Like that was how they were getting to know somebody that they loved already, but getting to know them on a different level. And I think sometimes if we focus on that with the kids, like having those conversations, it helps them see kind of the how loss is, and that we can still be happy and appreciative of the time we've had wherever that's been.
My grandmother passed away maybe 5 months ago, and she was 91. My grandfather's still alive. He's turning 94 in a week or two. And she said she didn't feel great, and she went to bed. And my grandfather said when he went to wake her up the next morning, he kind of knew that she had passed, and she had a little smile on her face. And I thought, ooh, sign me up for that, you know? But we flew out to have just a very small luncheon. And we have family that lives far away, so we didn't have the experience of having my kids' great-grandparents in our lives. They met them maybe 4 times, so it really wasn't a large relationship, but it's been in the past couple of years I've really made a point to make sure that when we go to New Jersey, we make a point to go to South Jersey to see them. And so when I told my kids, my oldest son, Christopher, he paused and he was like, really sorry to hear that. He's like, thank you so much for taking the time and effort to bring us there so we could get to know them. I was like, it's so interesting. Sometimes children are our best teachers, right? And I'm thinking I'm doing this, they're not going to have this big relationship with them, but I didn't realize that it actually meant quite that much to them. And then at the luncheon, I myself only saw my grandmother once a year for a couple of hours. That's really not enough. It wasn't like a full-time person in my life. And I would get a letter from her here and there, and I get an email from her here and there. And we had a nice relationship. But it was so awesome, like you said, Patty, to hear other people talk about her. And the chaplain at the retirement home came in and said that Jean, that's her name, her number one mission was to make sure that no one was by themselves and no one was alone. And that she always wanted to connect people. And I was like, I got like the chills. I was like, that's what I do, you know? And I didn't even know that was a part of who she was. Not that I didn't see the beautiful parts of her, but it's really nice to hear that and get that perspective from people that knew her better. So that closure, that time, seeing family that you maybe haven't seen for 5-10 years, it can be a real nice positive in times as well.
Yeah, there are other forms of loss too.
Absolutely.
For a child especially. I know we had a neighbor 3 doors down, and it really, my daughter took it hard because that was her best friend. And I wasn't making light of it, but I remember talking to someone and I said, come on, friends are going to move away. And they said, at 5, that's like a death. Like they're moving across the country.
That's
it's
their
as
whole
if
life.
She's not going to be here anymore, and it kind of made me look at it differently. I don't know if you've had
we've had that,
move away.
especially Naperville where we live. We have a lot of families moving in and moving out. It's transient in some ways. So kids have to learn. My kids have had some of their best friends move, and it was devastating for them, So it's just
kind of figuring out.
Absolutely. And I think that's the key, is teaching them how to deal with those emotions and that it's okay, really teaching them those coping mechanism, and sometimes sharing our own personal experiences of loss we might have, how we're going through it. It's not easy. It takes time. So I think it helps.
When you can model
and they need to know
help them go through that.
Exactly. And not feel like their parents have got it. It's them seeing your vulnerability is good for them to know, okay, it's not going to be easy.
Well, in today's age of social media, Christopher had one of his best friends move away, and I thought it was like 3 years. It had been a lot longer than that. Well, he just came back to visit. They reconnected, and now this boy's going to fly in to see Christopher for a couple days and stay with them. And really, I think that's awesome, right? You can still stay connected. So when someone moves away nowadays, it is
FaceTime. We FaceTime.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, there's
other
opportunities
avenues.
to still
Right.
connect with each other and be like, I know this is awful, but
Right.
hey, we're going to try once every 2 years to get together, or if that's impossible, that to be able to still connect and
it
be with
makes
each
an
other.
imprint. My brother-in-law, he's about 25, and when my daughter's friend moved away, he said, one of my worst memories as a child is I had a neighbor, I would go knock on the door, we'd play, and one day I knocked and it was literally another family. Well, this is obviously before social media. He goes, I was crushed. What do you mean they just moved? And he said years later when Facebook came out, he got a message and said, I'm sorry, from this guy saying, I'm so sorry. My family, my dad had to move and this happened.
Oh my
but
God.
it was on their minds like 15 years later.
Yeah.
At least now we do have that technology to keep
That must
in
have been
contact.
awesome.
Yeah. He said, he goes, I was only 6 or 7, and I will never forget going, what do you mean Johnny's not here?
Yeah.
He
It
moved.
would be crushing.
And to remember that now and say, one of my worst childhood memories. So, yeah, it's tough. It's tough. It's part of life. I think if we sugarcoat things and we don't allow them to experience them, then, we're just creating a false sense of
Absolutely.
what to expect in the future.
I think they need to learn the uncertainty in life.
Yeah.
Everything's not going to stay the same way, and the unexpected, I think, prepares them.
And for me, I've said it before, you don't get married hoping to get divorced. But when we went through our divorce, the kids were, young. And I remember just trying to make it as positive as possible with also giving them some space and time and ask them, how are you doing with this? Like, this kind of sucks, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
And although we've done, I think, a really good job of co-parenting and having 2 happy, healthy households for them to go to where it's not a really big stress of I'm going to mom or dad's. A lot of children don't have that as well. So giving them just their voice of this is uncomfortable to me, this is not, the best thing for me. And give validity to their emotions.
That's it.
You know what I
being
mean?
able to ask them, how are you doing with this?
Yeah.
And it's okay if you want to say this sucks, because it does.
Yep. So, loss is a part of life, unfortunately. Helping your kids process their emotions and providing a source of comfort will always help them get through these difficult times. We appreciate you tuning in to another episode of the Naperville Moms Network. And remember, you're always invited. Thank you.